So this is my product, and it's called Nature Nation by name, and that's named after me, and the slogan is Be a Lavender Ambassador, which is the main focal point of my product. So here it is in real life. It's a 3D printed container, and it has, and then the deodorant is inside, and you can just push it up with your finger like this.
Ooh, nice.
So that's
Can we see the bottom there?
Oh yes, and this is a hole, so this is where I had to size it so that all fingers can push it up. So that's a factor I had to consider too.
And there's like a lid that fits on too, right?
Yeah, so I had to 3D print the lid, and then there was also another filament that was more flexible. So this part is just so it looks like a deodorant container. This is so it fits, so it doesn't fall off.
Okay,
so I had to
this
size
goes
it.
on top.
Yeah, so I had to size it on top.
So I'm guessing this took more than one try to size correctly?
Yeah.
Okay.
More than one is an understatement, but it was a lot, yeah. So this is just different. So this is my world side map where I had to show the compromised and the idealized realities. So for the idealized realities, I had to show the ingredients used. So all the ingredients are natural and easily accessible ingredients, and they should be in your home. So you should have like coconut oil, baking soda, and even scents that you like. It's very arbitrary. I chose lavender as a scent for an SDG, and that deodorant can mask bad odors.
What did you mean by a SDG? So just for people who haven't, not sure what an SDG is.
Yeah, sure. So it's a sustainable development goal, and one of mine were reducing inequalities.
Yeah, and these are ones that you got off the United Nations, right?
Yes.
United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, yeah.
So these were just the basics of what deodorant stands for. So mine was a stick deodorant because they come in different forms, how they lock in moisture. This is just an ad showing how it smells nice, makes your skin smooth, and then Dove used an advertisement about beauty and beauty products to show the significance of their products. But then there's also cons that come with it. So the mainstream products, they have extracted parabens that are derived from a chemical known as para-hydroxybenzoic acid. So it's not really good for you, and especially with women, when we apply it in our underarms, they can interfere with body hormones, and it has caused a lot of societal concerns to breast cancer. There's also discoloration due to reactions to the chemicals used. And the advertisement, I would say, is very hypocritical that Dove used, because obviously they're talking about the portrayal of social media, but they're using editing and very good-looking actors to show that idea, which is very hypocritical. So those were some of the idealized and compromised realities. So some compromises I had to make was one, beeswax. So I used a mixture. I used candle wax and beeswax, but beeswax was kind of already a little bit accessible. But people who are financially vulnerable due to their socioeconomic status may not have those ingredients to make something readily available like deodorant, which is a basic hygienic human need. So that's a compromise I had to make, in the sense that my goal was to stand for reducing inequalities, but I had to compromise for paying for beeswax and also the 3D printed container. If people want to make a container, not everyone has a 3D printer because they're also very expensive. So the financial aspect was a compromise I had to make.
So you got the result variables up there, over there on the right, are things that you kind of got from your world sign, where you had kind of like the idealized things. Those are what your result variables were based on. So then you had these ideas that you also had values that you wanted to embed inside your project, inside your physical product itself, right? So what were some of the values you chose there?
So I chose, again, the sustainable development goals that emphasize my values, which is climate action, so being eco-friendly, and also being open-minded to reduce inequalities. So the main scent that I chose for my container was lavender. But when we think lavender, we don't think the term indigenous. We think like mainstream, like ads and like lavender candles and lavender essential oils from mainstream companies that are not indigenous run. So I chose lavender, and I researched that it was actually originally used and as a powwow scent for their earthy floral scent, and as a calming scent before they do the powwow events and ceremonies. So that was a value I had to show, which was like being open-minded and being more aware about the idea of post-colonialism and Eurocentric ideals that are embedded into Canada, especially Canada. That's it. Do I have to do my art piece?
Yeah, so why don't we talk about your art piece next? You can switch it there.
Yeah.
So you can hit the little full screen thing there.
Where is it?
Go on the from current slide. See all the way on the left?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice. So you made this art piece, and I guess a big part of this art piece was that you're kind of trying to show an idealized version of the future. Kind of if everything went right, and you kind of like were able to spread the ideas of your invention kind of all throughout the world, and people would take up your values. What are you kind of trying to show with your art piece here?
So my art piece, the main focal points is the lavender symbol, because again, that was a main focal point of my product as the sustainable development goal. And then the background was contrasting that, which is landfills, because I 3D printed my container through PLA plastic, which is biodegradable, so it's eco-friendly. So I used the lavender symbol, and I incorporated different aspects of my product into different parts of lavender. So like, the parabens, so it's the ingredients of lavender is that they're all natural and that they don't have like any harmful chemicals within it. This is the breast cancer symbol to show the societal factors that are incorporated with mainstream deodorants, because there's a lot of concerns with women saying, what if we get breast cancer? So that's like the social part or society part of STSE. And then I wanted to use, this is an indigenous company that sells deodorants, so this could be like a dispositif between my product and the indigenous-led small business. So that was
like a big, great, amazing words, dispositif. So how could we kind of define dispositif there, or even choose like a different word to make it less kind of more accessible, even instead of using the word dispositif?
Alliance. So it's like a symbiotic relationship between two stakeholders. So I'm a stakeholder that plays a big part in my product, and then the indigenous company is also a stakeholder. So it's like a beneficial relationship between both of us to reach a certain goal, which is to emphasize indigenous companies and indigenous voices in Canada or globally. And then again, I used powwow to show the scent within the lavender part as the scent, and then the 3D printer. But obviously, to get my product going, I also have to make alliances with mainstream companies so that it's more popular. So those were the main ideas I wanted to incorporate. Deodorant, the biology part of it was that some people have conditions like hyperhidrosis, and lavender, and it's caused by anxiety and mental health issues too. Lavender is known as a calming scent, so that could aid in hyperhidrosis as well. So yeah, that's my art piece.
Excellent.
And this was the statements that I just said.
Nice, excellent. So what do you think kind of holds society back from more inventions that would have kind of perhaps different values? So kind of like, why do you think, let's say, the deodorant industry is the way that it is, for instance? Because you often don't hear about trying to engage indigenous communities, for instance.
Well, this is because there's no representation in our government from indigenous voices, and it's very hard to move from a norm, especially a Eurocentric norm, that's already so incorporated into like our Canadian culture. So that's what's the main thing that's holding it back. It takes a lot of effort, because something that has been so hidden in the past to become more popularized in like the current generation is really hard to do. And then also like the environmental aspect of it takes money, like to 3D print or be more eco-friendly. But and the end goal, then once we like move towards that, the impacts will be more positive. So it's easier to do, easier than we think.
Okay. Yeah, so when you're looking at your artwork, you kind of put both abiotic and biotic, both like kind of non-living and living things in there, working kind of together in synergy, right? So what would be some of those that you have there?
So the living, I would point out, is this is a lavender field in Ontario in Zone 5. So this is a living factor, because in order to get the scent of lavender, I would need a lot of lavender plants to extract that oil to get the scent. And then also a non-living thing would be the concept of powwow and the beliefs of indigenous peoples, so that I can be more educated in my product. Obviously the 3D printing is non-living, because that's obviously abiotic, so I would need money and corporations to help me to do so. So those are some abiotic and biotic factors that could help launch my product. There's also another biotic factors of like biology, of concept of chemicals and the composition of parabens that I have eliminated from my product.
All right, thank you. So you kind of mentioned like, you know, the fact you have like you're gonna have to have alliances, right? And that inside like, you know, this big kind of network, there could be both living and non-living things that have influence and that have agency. So what could be some both living and non-living things that could, let's say, help your invention take off?
So a living thing, again, or a living community would be the Indigenous communities, to educate me more on how to amplify their voice through my product. So those are living people, even though Canada hasn't treated them that way. And then the non-living factor, I would say, is obviously we can't like mass produce 3D printers, but corporations have enough money to do so. So alliances with mainstream corporations is the non-living factor to promote my product, and social media as well. So those are the non-living factors to launch the values that I want in my product.